In a bustling city, where wealth and luxury were flaunted on every corner, there lived a man named Ode, known for his charm, handsome looks, and endless appetite for pleasure. Ade had everything: success in business, luxurious cars, a mansion, and a beautiful wife named Kemi. But while Ode seemed to have it all, his heart was filled with greed and lust, leaving his wife Kemi to suffer in silence. Kemi had married Ode when he was still building his fortune. Back then, they shared dreams of a happy family and a future filled with love. But as Ade's wealth grew, so did his distance from Kemi. He no longer saw her as his partner but as a mere caretaker for their children, someone to keep the household running while he indulged in his secret pleasures. Despite Kemi's beauty and devotion, Ode treated her with disdain. He refused to be intimate with her, offering her no love or affection. Instead, he lavished his attention and money on prostitutes, spending late nights in luxury hotels, enjoying the company of women who only saw him for his wealth. He drove around in the most expensive cars, flaunting his status, while Kemi was forced to stay home, her appearance neglected because Ode never gave her money for herself. Her clothes were worn out and faded, her hair unkempt. Kemi, once beautiful, vibrant and full of life, became a shadow of the woman she once was. She kept no friends either, as Ode forbade her from keeping friends. He would say keeping friends would only influence you negatively. You don't need to worry about yourself, just take care of the children, Ode would say coldly whenever Kemi asked for anything. That's your job. He took pride in his success, believing that as long as he provided for the family, he could live as he pleased. But Ode was blind to the fact that his actions were slowly destroying his marriage, and worse, his own soul. Over the years, Ade's infidelity grew even more uncontrollable. He would spend nights out and come back in the early hours of the morning in the guise of working. He didn't care how his wife felt, as this broke her heart and shattered it into 1,000 pieces. And so did his spending. He showered his mistresses with expensive gifts, designer clothes, jewelry, and exotic vacations. Every night he would come home late, smelling of perfume and alcohol, and Kemi would wake up, her heart aching, knowing that her husband no longer cared for her. She had grown tired of confronting him, as his cold replies and dismissals only pushed her further into isolation. Each time, Ode dismissed her pleas, caring only for his own gratification and extramarital affairs. One evening, after an especially extravagant night, Ode returned home to find Kemi sitting at the dining table. She looked thinner than before, her face pale from stress and exhaustion. Her once bright eyes were now dull, and her lips pressed tightly together as she spoke softly. Ode, this isn't right. We are your family, yet you treat us like we don't exist. Please, for the sake of the children, come back to us. Ode scoffed, his voice dripping with arrogance. I provide for you, don't I? What more do you want? I want a husband who loves and respects me, Kemi replied, her voice barely holding back the tears. I want you to be the father our children need. But Ode had long stopped caring. You're just jealous, he said dismissively. Jealous that I'm enjoying life while you sit here looking miserable. With that, Ode turned away, leaving Kemi alone in the cold silence of their once warm home. Days turned into months, and Ade's reckless spending soon caught up with him. The businesses he had neglected started to fail. His lavish lifestyle became harder to maintain, yet he kept spending on his mistresses, believing that money would always flow in. But one day, the flow stopped. His once thriving bank accounts were drained, and his debts mounted. The prostitutes he had spoiled now avoided him, as his wealth and charm faded into ruin. The luxurious cars were sold to pay off loans, and the mansion he had so proudly flaunted was at risk of being repossessed. In his arrogance, Ode hadn't noticed that his wife, Kemi, had quietly been planning her escape. One morning, Ode woke up to an empty house. The children's rooms were bare, and Kemi's belongings were gone. She had taken the children and left without a word. Ade searched for her, but Kemi had moved far away, to a place where she could rebuild her life without him. With no money and no family, Ade's world crumbled. Desperation gripped him as he realized too late what he had lost. He could no longer afford the luxurious lifestyle he once flaunted. No more fast cars or designer clothes, no more extravagant nights out. His friends and mistresses, who had once clung to him for his wealth, disappeared as quickly as his money did. Alone, without even a roof over his head, Ade began to see the depth of his mistakes. Kemi, meanwhile, began to thrive. She used the little savings she had managed to hide over the years to start her own small business. Though it was difficult at first, she worked tirelessly to provide for her children. With time, her business grew, and soon, Kemi was not only financially stable but flourishing. Her children were happy, and she was free from the emotional chains that Ade had bound her with for so long. Kemi's beauty returned, not just in her appearance, but in her spirit. She was confident, independent, and strong, a woman who had reclaimed her life from the ashes of her marriage. Ade, on the other hand, became a cautionary tale in the city, a man who had everything and lost it all through his selfishness. One day, after years of separation, Ade, now poor and desperate, asked for Kemi from her family. They reluctantly gave him her address, knowing how badly he had treated her. He approached Kemi as he stood before her in tattered clothes, his face filled with regret. "Kemi, I was wrong. I see that now. I've lost everything, can you forgive me?" Kemi looked at him, her heart no longer burdened by the pain he had caused. She had moved on, healed, and grown. Without malice, she replied, "I forgave you a long time ago, Ade. But forgiveness doesn't mean I will forget, nor will I return to the life I left behind. I have built a new life for myself and our children, one filled with love and respect. That's all I ever wanted." Ade stood there, his heart sinking, realizing that what he had lost could never be regained. As Kemi turned and walked away, he saw not only the woman he had taken for granted but the life and love he had destroyed with his own hands. Now alone, he faced the bitter truth that his wealth and indulgence had cost him his family, his dignity, and his future. Please, if you're enjoying these folktales, do well to press the follow button and subscribe. And God bless you as you do.